Okay, I'm going to start out by working right in the middle here. And this tree here, what I want to do is add in another little tree trunk, really thin one. Coming down right in the front there. I'm also going to add another little one right here. So I'm using my pinky to brace my hand against the canvas, just drawing in these really thin little lines. I'm going to add one more here to this tree. And the reason why I'm doing this, I'm looking at the balance of foliage. And I don't want the foliage to overhang a trunk like this, like way over. Because a lot of times these poplar type trees, the branches aren't super long. So you can see here I'm putting in this thin tree trunk to kind of balance out the foliage over here. Then I'm going to take my brush and just add in maybe a few spots where the tree trunks go up through the leaves a little bit more, and filling in some of these gaps here. It's good to have some gaps, but you want to have branches kind of connecting up those gaps. You don't want too much floating foliage. It's okay to have a little bit. We don't always see every little branch. So even these gaps here, the ones I was talking about earlier with the foliage, putting in just a few little lines as branches. So to see it up close here, just little lines connecting up through the branches. Okay, so now I've got lots of nice branches. Actually, there's some over here I want to connect up. Maybe make this guy a little thicker. Okay, now that I've got the branches in there, I want to start adding in highlights to the tree trunk. So I'm going to show you a few and then let you do the rest, just because it's a tedious process. So I'm going to stick with my liner brush for right now. And start highlighting the trees. I'll do this bunch right through here, and then I'll let you do the rest. Okay, for my color, I'm just taking the same mixture we just had, adding white to it, and a little bit more raw umber to warm it up. And we'll start with this mid-tone gray. Okay, what I want to do initially is highlight the bottom portion of these trees. So I'm just taking my liner brush and pulling it down, highlighting the bottom portion because the light source is top left. So maybe only little bits of light will get down through the trees. So I'm starting thinking that some of this stuff's in shadow. Maybe do a couple little highlights like this to indicate light getting through. Especially if you have a big exposed branch in a gap, then you can add in, a few brighter highlights. But for the most part, we're going to stick to highlighting down through the bottom portion. And they don't all have to be the same height. So sometimes I do a shorter highlight like that just to kind of indicate that maybe the shadow's coming down and just hitting, there's little bits of light getting through, hitting that tree trunk, but not the whole thing. So maybe the light's coming down through and there's a shadow here cast from the other trees. So you have to think about all those little things. Okay, I'll go over here, same thing. Highlighting the bottom portion kind of in a random fashion. We're hitting most of the tree trunk, but at different heights. Okay, and then maybe you can see a highlight here and there going up through the tree. Every once in a while you can go back to your dark color and kind of connect up some of the darker areas. And down at the base here, I want to make this nice and dark. Again, kind of random in different heights. Also with this color, I'm just going to put a few little spots and imperfections on the trees. So just little dots, little lines. There's really no specific pattern that I go by, just random. So random means not evenly separated, not patterns or anything like that. You want to try to be as random as possible. So if you find yourself doing like these similar patterns on every tree, try to change it up some. All right, once you've got those all on there, those little random dots and lines, clean your brush off. And we're going to go back to that same color here, but add a bunch more white. So this was our initial color with white added. Maybe a little bit more raw umber. Just to warm it up some. And then with this color, I'm going to go really random again. And I'm taking my brush out to the front part of the tree, and I'm pulling kind of these rounded shapes. So I'm trying to give it that bark look. So just dragging the brush creates these little rounded shapes. And I'll zoom in so you can see me do these shapes on the trees over here. Okay, I want to bring you in a little bit closer just so you can see. I take the brush out to the edge, and I'm not even worried about getting it perfectly on the edge. Just doing these little rounded shapes, sometimes drag the brush down. Then maybe work some of that up a little bit higher through the trees. Okay, maybe I'm going to add a little bit of light coming up through this tree a little bit higher, just to add variety to the height of which the tree is exposed. Maybe make this a more prominent piece right in through here. And maybe add another branch or two that's exposed, that's lit up by the light. Okay, and then you can highlight just little pieces of those spots you created to give the same sort of sense that the light's just getting through the tree and hitting little pieces of the tree here and there, whether it's foliage, branches. Okay, so what you can do now is I've shown you how I've highlighted the trunks of the trees, created branches, little highlights throughout the tree. Now you can do that on the rest of these trees here on the ends. And then we'll catch up and start with, we'll do the background tree line with some highlights, and then we'll do the grass. Okay, for my color, I'm going to take some sap green and my brilliant blue and just a little smidge of yellow. Okay, I want just a really thin layer here. And what I did is I tested my color up here. It's a little too yellow, so I'm going to add some more blue to that. So that's what I'm going for there, just a slight change in value. And all I'm going to do is just kind of highlight the top, scrubbing up and down. But leaving kind of the bottom right in shadow. Okay, I just want to show you a little more up close. I just kind of do some sideways brushes, some vertical, and highlighting kind of out towards that left, and then just getting more sporadic as I go down and away from the light source. Okay, very abstract. I want to highlight all the way across. You can see how fast I go, just really random highlighting out towards that light source, then more sporadic as I go down and away. More sporadic brush strokes. Okay, maybe I'll go just a touch lighter, so that same color and just the littlest bit of white, and maybe a little touch more yellow. Then again, really sporadic out towards the top left, just kind of highlighting the edge for the most part. And then a couple little brush strokes within the tree to indicate some texture. Okay, so what that does is it pushes those trees back, gives them a little bit of depth while keeping the focus up here in the foreground. Okay, so the last step really is to paint in the grassy area here down at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to take my flat brush. I'm going to show you a couple different ways. I've got a flat brush and I've also got a fan brush. So I'm going to start with a flat brush. We're going to take sap green and cad yellow medium. We're going to make a yellow-green color. Really load the brush up a lot like this. Okay, for the fan brush, same type of thing, except we're not loading it up quite as much. A very nice even coat. Okay, with my flat brush, I'm going to take and do some vertical brush strokes, dragging the brush down. I'm going to bring the grass all the way up to the edge of the trees. But I want there to look like there's a shadow cast. So I'll bring the grass color right up to the tree trunks, to the bottom here. And then very carefully put in a strip in behind up to the next trees. This creates a little bit of a shadow being cast from the tree. So we will have to get in between the trees as well, but I'll use a smaller brush for that. Okay, maybe every once in a while you can work in a slightly different green color. So what you can do is have a couple going. I would take some brilliant blue and sap green and mix kind of a darker green color, but still has that yellowish color to it. And sometimes put some of this green in there. So go back and forth between that and the yellow. For the fan brush, which seems to be people's favorite way of doing grass, you're taking that same color, but you're holding the fan brush kind of, instead of straight on like this where you're going to get clumps or rounded clumps over and over, you tilt the brush a little bit so only the corner is showing. And you just drag the brush down like that and overlap. And you get that same kind of textured grassy look. So you can mix and match. Sometimes, again, go back to that more greenish color. Work some of that in there. Sometimes go back to the flat brush. That way you're getting lots of different textures and shapes. You're just dragging the brush downward each time. So that way the bristles kind of stick up and it creates a little bit of a bristly shape in the grass and gives it some texture. Okay, so I'm going to continue on here with my grassy color. Sometimes with the fan brush. Sometimes with the flat brush. And eventually we will get in between the trees. Okay, just going to keep working my way over here. Maybe these trees are up closer to the edge, so eventually that shadow kind of just disappears over the hill. Okay, so what you want to do next is just take your liner brush, grab some of your color, and you'll tap in between your trees to make it so the highlights don't just stop whenever you reach trees. Okay, for my last step, I'm going to go just a little bit more yellow in my grass color with my flat brush. And just hit a few kind of brighter spots. A little bit more vibrant. Kind of along just the edge of the trees. Brings that focus right up to the trees. It's kind of a cool technique. Create more contrast is just highlight sometimes just around your focal point rather than highlighting everything in the painting. Okay, one last thing you can do is take a little bit of that grass color and mix it in with a little bit of sap green. It's really bright stuff. Then maybe come up here and add in just slightly more saturated color to the top parts of your trees. Same technique as before. You don't have to do this, but this will help tie in some of the colors to your grasses, which is kind of a cool little effect. Brings everything together.
Okay, and with that, that completes our painting lesson. If you have any questions, make sure you post your progress on the Facebook group page or visit my website, www.timgagnon.com. I also have a large variety of other online painting lessons, from still life to portrait. So if you're interested in learning more, make sure you check out my website. I also travel the country and Canada teaching workshops and hope to come overseas soon too. So make sure you keep checking out my workshop schedule. So I hope you enjoyed this free lesson and had a lot of fun painting it. Again, if you have any questions, please visit my website or post your progress on the Facebook group page. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.